Now, it's one of the big set pieces of the political year, the Chancellor's autumn statement, and George Osborne used it to paint a rosy picture of the economy, with growth forecasts up and borrowing coming down. But Labour says ordinary people aren't benefiting from any growth. So how does it feel for those on different sides of the economic divide here in the East Midlands? Will it be a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year when it comes to jobs and prosperity? Well, one Derbyshire business thinks so. EPM at Draycott is moving to new purpose-built premises and looking to take on workers in the new year. The company makes carbon fibre parts for the car industry. We spoke to owner Graham Mulholland this time last year. Then he was pessimistic about the outlook. Now he's looking forward to expanding.
We've got a £6.5 million project. 4.75 million is a loan from the Derby Enterprise Growth Fund. We're getting interest, paying interest on that loan, and that loan will be spun back into the Derby economy, and the Derby City Council can find another EPM technology and reinvest it. But we're going to spend that money on factory, on plant and equipment, and on upskilling and taking on more employees. The order book is there. We've got 3 new customers for next year. We've just done an exhibition, and we've been very lucky to win an MOD, a military application. But our new facility is 3 times bigger. We're taking our employees from 75 to 180. So we're absolutely on course for our plan, almost regardless of the recession. We're going to do it anyway. My message to number 11 Downing Street: George, keep your hand on the tiller. Do not let go. Just keep things really simple. Keep it consistent. Don't trip us up before we get going.
But not everyone has such a positive outlook. For some, it could be a very bleak midwinter. At the Hope Nottingham Food Bank in Beeston, they've just had their busiest ever week. Now they're preparing for an even busier Christmas and see no sign of a growing economy improving people's income.
It can be families, ordinary families, that are just finding they haven't got enough to make ends meet. We're finding one of the things we experienced a lot over the school summer holidays was families whose children normally get free school meals, not able to feed the children during the summer. We've had supply teachers, for example, who have not had enough work, have had no work over the summer, and their income just dries up, and they've not been able to get by. So that's working people that increasingly are just not able to manage. One of the realities actually is throughout the so-called recession, those who've had more than enough money have continued to have an increase in their income. Those who've not had enough, that's got even worse. And one of the huge effects of the recession that has affected many local authorities is the extent to which they've had to cut local services that support local people. And that's having a massive impact on lots of ordinary people who need perhaps just a little bit of support, and that's just been taken away from them altogether.
Well, Anna, that Hope Nottingham Food Bank is actually in your constituency, and I know that you've been there yourself. Even if the economy is improving, there are still hundreds of people who rely on places like that for help and support. And the people that are using it saying they are not seeing any benefit from the upturn in the economy.
No, I mean, look, the reality of it is we've always had people in our society who are, not as well off as others, and we've had for probably forever, we've had people who are poor. It's one of the reasons why some of us actually come into politics, is to be able to change that situation.
Food banks these days have never been busier, Anna.
Well, what I was going to say was that, of course, with food banks, who do a fabulous job, and I do indeed know Hope. I mean, food banks actually grew 10 times under the last government. Does that mean there was greater poverty under the last government? Of course, would say no. Food banks have now increased, and they're more popular and they're more widely known.
You make it sound as though that's a good thing, but it's not. It's not a good thing that they're more popular, is it?
Forgive me. They are doing a fantastic job. That is the good thing. Whether there is more need out there is obviously something to debate about.
Well, let's bring Chris
in
here.
What I would say is that you don't solve those problems by not increasing business. So we heard from somebody who's employing more.
He's creating jobs.
That's what it's about. It's about creating jobs. It's about restoring our economy.
Well, there are two sides to this story, aren't there? And we heard what the businessman said. He says things are looking up. He's happy about the state of the economy. He says it's on the up.
And let's hope that when we do see a recovery, that everybody gets a fair crack of the whip. Our worry is, on the Labour side, that actually there's a lot of complacency in the Conservatives. George Osborne doesn't understand that for most people life is getting harder. And the Institute for Fiscal Studies, their judgment is now in. They say that household incomes are going to be squeezed very much more considerably by the time of the next general election. So people will be a lot worse off, thanks to David Cameron.
Are going to feel the benefit, aren't they?
And let's hope so.
That.
The worry is, though, that it's looking as though it's turning out to be a recovery for the few and those who already are very wealthy. But the cost of living squeeze is continuing. We didn't get the energy price freeze that we should have had.
We've got the food bank, we've got supply teachers turning up, haven't we?
We've got both of you. But what I was going to say was that the jobs that are going to be created at the business that we've just seen are not jobs for the rich. Those are jobs for ordinary people. That is great and wonderful news.
And that is what it's about.
Youth
unemployment, long-term youth unemployment, up 127%
Chris,
since you came to
interrupting you, Lovey.
office. You did actually.
Well, I apologise.
That's all right.
And actually, we're doing some good work on youth, because one of the things that we've done, for example, is we've abolished national insurance for under 21s.
But
we're talking about hard-working people here, aren't we?
2015.
Who need support and help. And at that food bank that you've been to,
yes,
there are hard-working people,
that's right,
supply teachers.
Sorry, hard-working people there.
People trying to work, trying to do their job.
But the majority of people
and
that
supply
go
teachers.
well, there's one supply teacher that we've heard about, but people who go to food banks tend not always to be in jobs. I'm not saying that some aren't, but the majority of the people who are not in work. And one of the things that we are desperately trying to do, and I think we're achieving that, is we're making sure that you're better off in work than not in work.
Mary.
We've got work programmes to get people back into work. We've invested hugely
but we
in
can't
that.
Have any
because
more
at the end of the
complacency
day,
now.
no, it's not complacency.
No, let me give you one statistic.
What you don't
Anna.
do is borrow. That's what busts us and put us in the position.
Speaking about borrowing, the Money Advice Service this week said that in Nottingham, over 40% of people, are struggling to cope with the debts that they've got. They're depleting their savings at the fastest rate in 40 years, and the squeeze is on, and they don't feel that you're doing enough to tackle that cost of living crisis.
Just remember where we all were in 2010, a country that was nearly bankrupt.
The whole world had a banking crisis. The whole world had a banking crisis.
We had one of the biggest deficits in the whole.
And it's still enormous.
And
it's gone on. You've pushed it on for another 4 years.
Chris, we've reduced the deficit by a third, and if you look at Osborne's plans, it's to reduce it even further and borrow less.
Isn't the problem for you that the economy is improving and people might not be feeling it so much yet in their pockets, but in a year's time, as we get closer to that all-important election, it looks far better for George Osborne, doesn't it?
It's not a problem if the economy is improving. That is very good news as long as everybody has a share in it. But people watching this programme need to ask themselves, do they feel yet as though they are seeing this recovery after 3 long years where we haven't had the growth because the Chancellor pulled that rug of confidence from underneath the economy, and the lack of growth for 3 years hasn't just put the public finances into a deep problem, it's created a cost of living crisis.
What would you do?
Let me tell you though, if you ask me the question, I'll tell you. She won't let me tell you.
And that's what
I'll tell you, an energy price freeze, we should make the energy company...
50 quid off bills.
Not enough. Their bills are still going to go up £70. You can't allow these energy companies to go along without their profits being touched at all.
We know that.
Deal with the energy, and we need a childcare improvement to 25 hours.
For every child up to the age of 7.
Anna, you must be loving this, mustn't you? As you approach an election,
we already have
free
free school meals for the poorest children, and we've got to do more to deal with the childcare crisis.
Well, we are doing
in
that
your
as well.
Constituency, people are facing no, not 25. You have 15 hours free childcare. You can't do a part-time job if you drop your child off at 12:30 and have to pick them up at 3:30. You've got to give people better, affordable childcare.
How are you going to pay?
It's interesting to see that you still have so many differences when people are saying that a lot of your policies are so much the same these days, but there are obviously still things that you disagree on.
No, they're not. But we are two parties come together in government, and the opposition, of course, is one party.
Well, we'll see what happens after the election.
We certainly will see what happens after the election.